Now, when you create a string by writing a piece of text and enclosing it in a pair of quotation marks, you are using what's called the string literal syntax. And the string literal syntax actually creates a string primitive. And by definition, primitives can't have properties or methods because they are not objects. Thankfully, when you create a string primitive in JavaScript, JavaScript actually automatically creates an instance of the string object, so your string primitive actually has access to the properties and methods of the string object. Some of these properties and methods we'll look at right now. One of these properties is the length property. The length property will tell you how long a string is. In order to use it, you type in the string and then you type in dot length and then you end the statement with a semicolon. The length property will count all the characters inside the string and will output how many characters are there inside the string. In this case, on the right hand side, as you can see, we have the output in a comment. We'll be using comments like this in order to tell you the output of certain piece of code, or otherwise just tell you how the code works or what it does. In this case, the output is 19. And if you count all the characters, white spaces, and punctuation marks inside the string, you'll see that there actually is 19 characters. So the length property of a string will tell you how long the string is. Strings also have different methods available. In this case, one cool method is the toLowerCase method. The toLowerCase method will actually take a string and output the same string but with all characters in lowercase. So in this case, we have a string that says JS is great, and JS and the G in great are actually capitalized, they're uppercase. But when we use the toLowerCase method by typing in dot toLowerCase and then a pair of parentheses, the pair of parentheses is what actually executes the method. Then the output string on the right hand side in the comment, as you can see, it's the same string, JS is great, but all the letters have been turned into lowercase. So JS and G in great have been turned into lowercase. So the toLowerCase method can be used to convert any characters inside a string into lowercase characters. Do remember that JavaScript is case sensitive, so in order to use the toLowerCase method, you have to write it exactly as shown right here, otherwise it might not work. The opposite of the toLowerCase method is the toUpperCase method. The toUpperCase method takes a string and outputs it, but with all letters and characters in uppercase, so they are capitalized. In this case, we have another string that says JS is awesome. And when we use the toUpperCase method, the output string on the comment on the right hand side, as you can see, is the same string, but with all letters are capitalized. So the toUpperCase method is effectively the opposite of the toLowerCase method. Now another cool method is the char_at method. The char_at method can be used to pull out a character from a string. In this case, we have the string YOLO, and then we're typing in .char_at, and then instead of a blank pair of parentheses, inside this parentheses, we actually input the number, the character that we want to pull out. In this case, we have inputted 4, and char_at4 actually returns the character O from the YOLO. So it extracts the O character from the YOLO sentence. But how does this work? You see, whenever you create a string, each character inside the string is actually assigned an index. The index starts at 0 and then goes on to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The first character in a string has the index 0. The second character has the index 1. The third character has the index 2, and so on. So in this case, we have a string YOLO, and index 0 of this string is the first character, which is capital Y. Index 1 is the second character, which is lowercase e. Index 2 is the third character, which is lowercase l, and so on. In this case, the char_at method inside the parentheses accepts the index as its parameter. In this case, we have inputted 4 as the index parameter. And if you start counting from 0 to 4 inside the string, you'll see that you'll end up at the letter O. So this is how you extract a character from a string. If we inputted char_at0, then it will return the uppercase Y. If we had inputted char_at5, it would have outputted the last W. This is how you can extract a certain character using its index from inside a string. Another method using indexes of strings is the slice method. Now, the char@at method only extracts one character, but what if you need to extract a portion of a string from inside another string? In this case, we can use the slice method. The slice method, instead of just one parameter, actually accepts two different parameters, and they're separated by a comma inside the parentheses. In this case, the first parameter is the index where the slicing will start, and the second parameter is the index where the slicing will end. And JavaScript will return the resulting piece of string. In this case, we have a string that says apples are red, and we're slicing it from index 7 all the way up to index 10. So if you count from 0 to 7, you'll see that 7 is actually the A in the R. So in the middle word we have R, and A is the index 7. And index 10 is just after R. After R we have a white space, and that is index 10. So when we slice from 7 to 10, we slice in the whole R word, and on the output, as you can see on the right hand side, we have the word R. So this is how you can slice out a part of the string using the slice method. You input the start of the slice as the first parameter and where it ends as the end parameter. The result is a part of the string has been sliced out. Another cool method is the repeat method. The repeat method can be used to repeat a string again and again and again a specific number of times. In this case, we have a small string that says red, and then we type in .repeat, and then inside the parentheses we type in the number of times we need to repeat the string. In this case, we have the parameter 4, and in the output, as you can see, it says red, 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 red. So you can tell JavaScript how many times to repeat a string inside the parentheses of the repeat method, and the output string will repeat this input string the specific number of times. Another cool method of strings is the search method. Now the search method can be used to search for a search term inside a string. In this case, we have a string that says I love coding, and then we're typing in .search, and inside the parentheses the search method accepts a parameter. That is the search term that we are searching for. In this case, we're searching for the word love, and in this case we have the word love inside the string, right? So the output is the index where the search term starts. In this case, we have the string I love coding, and the word love actually starts at index 2 because the first character I is index 0, the second white space is index 1, and then the love L starts at index 2. So the search method can be used to search for a search term inside a string, and if it finds it, it will return the index where it found the search term. In this case, it returns 2, so we know the word love comes in inside the string at index 2. If the search method can't find the search term it's looking for, it will return -1, which will tell you that the search term wasn't found inside the string. Now you can input a string as a parameter inside the search method, but it has its limitations. For example, it's case sensitive, and it can't really search for multiple instances of the same word. Thankfully, you can have more powerful pattern matching and searching using regular expressions. We'll talk more about regular expressions in the later lessons of this course, but for now, you can use the search method and use a string instead. Similar to the search method, we have the replace method, which actually takes in two strings as its parameters, separated by a comma. In this case, the first string is the string that you need to search for, and the second string parameter is the thing that it will be replaced with. So in this case, we have a string that says I love cakes, and we're typing in .replace cakes with chocolates. So JavaScript will search for the word cakes inside the string, and it will replace it with chocolates. So in this case, the output string on the bottom, as you can see, is the output I love chocolates. So in this case, the replace method works similar to the search method. But instead of just telling you whether it found the string or not, you can actually use it to replace the found string with another string. In this case, we have replaced the cakes in I love cakes with the word chocolates. So the output is I love chocolates. The replace method can also accept regular expressions, which can be used for more powerful pattern matching and searching. Another cool method is the trim method. Now, oftentimes you might have white spaces at the beginning and end of a string. In this case, we have a string that says I'm learning JS. But at the beginning and end, we have multiple unnecessary white spaces. Using the trim method, JavaScript will actually trim out these white spaces. So as you can see on the right hand side, we have the same string as output, but all the unnecessary white spaces from the beginning and end of the string has been trimmed out. There's also the trim left method, which only trims out the left portion of the string and not the right hand side. So in this case, we have a string hello, and using the trim left method, as you can see on the right hand side, only the left portion of the hello string has been trimmed out, but all the white spaces in the right hand side is still visible. And the opposite is the trim right method. It does the exact opposite. It trims the white spaces from the right hand side but not the left hand side. So in this case, using the same string, we have the output, but all the left white spaces are preserved while the right white spaces are trimmed out. So you can use the trim left method in order to trim from the left hand side or start of the string, or the trim right method to trim from the right hand side or the end of the string, or use the general trim method to trim from both ends. Now, in the latest version of JavaScript, which is ECMAScript 2017, some new cool methods have been added to strings. One of these is the pad start method. Now, the pad start method can be used to actually take a string and output the string in a certain length. So in this case, we have the string violet. And if you count down all the characters, you'll see that violet actually contains 6 characters. So the length of the string is 6. But you can use the pad start method, and then you can specify the output length of the string, and the output will be the string, but the string will be padded to the specific length. So in this case, we have pad start 10. So inside the parentheses, we specify the length of the string. In this case, we want the string to be of length 10. So we want 10 characters. And JavaScript will actually pad the string in order to achieve the specific length. In this case, we have violet.padStart10. Now, violet itself only contains 6 characters, so its length is 6. But the output length must be 10. In this case, JavaScript puts in extra white spaces at the start of the string in order to output a string with a length 10. But if you input a length that is actually lower than the original length of the string, in this case we have padStart2, which doesn't make sense because 2 is actually lower than the actual string that we have, then it doesn't really do anything. It outputs the string as is. Now the cool thing is that you can actually specify a second parameter inside the padStart method. By default, JavaScript will pad using the white space, but you can also pad using a specific string or other character. In this case, we have the same method, but instead of padding using white spaces, we want to pad using the character A. So we type in padStart10, A. And as you can see on the right hand side, instead of 4 extra white spaces as we had in the first example, we actually have 4 extra A's in order to achieve the 10 total string length. So you can actually specify which character or string JavaScript will use in order to pad the string. Now if you input a padding string that's actually bigger, then only the usable portion will be used. In this case, we have violet padStart9, apple. But the whole word apple is not required because in order to achieve a string length of 9, we only need 3 extra characters. So in this case, JavaScript just uses the first 3 characters in order to achieve the total string length of 9 and then outputs it as is. You can also pad the end of the string using the padEnd method. It works almost the same as the padStart method. So in this case, instead of padding the start of the string, you can pad the end of the string. So padEnd, then inside the parentheses, you input the desired length. In this case, it's 10. And instead of padding the start, it'll actually pad the end. In this case, add 4 white spaces at the end of the string, inputting violet and then 4 white spaces. padEnd3, which is actually lower than the input string length, will output the string as is without any padding. You can also specify which character you'll use for the padding. So by default, we use white spaces, but in this case, we can use zeros. So padEnd10, 0 actually gives you violet 0000. So instead of padding using white spaces, it pads using the character 0. And of course, if the pad string is bigger than required, it will just use the portion it needs. So pad N9 purple actually uses the first three characters, violet, then per.